Have you ever woken up feeling like the weight of the world was pressing down on you before you even stepped out of bed? That quiet, nagging panic? The pressure to be better, do more, fix everything you think is broken in your life. It's like your mind starts racing before you've had a chance to breathe. You wonder, is there a better way to start? Not just the day but your life? The Stoics believed that every sunrise is a fresh start, a rebirth. Each day isn't just a continuation of yesterday's problems. It's a clean slate. This video isn't about hacks or trendy shortcuts. It's about the real, internal shift that happens when you wake up with intention, presence, and the right words spoken to yourself. If you've ever felt like you're just going through the motions, craving a reset that comes from within, not from an app or productivity planner, then stick with me. By the end of this video, you'll have 13 powerful affirmations rooted in Stoic wisdom to help you start each day with clarity, courage, and purpose. And if you're someone walking the path of growth, not chasing perfection, but choosing inner strength each day, then consider subscribing. This space is for you. Sometimes we wake up with a weight that's hard to name. It's not the physical weight we feel in our arms or legs, but a mental weight. Maybe it's the regret of something we didn't do, or the stress and doubt that's built up over time. You lie there, wondering if you'll ever feel free again. Most people get stuck here. They hand over the new day to yesterday's shadows, but here's the thing, just because something happened doesn't mean it needs to keep happening in your head. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Your reaction, your ability to choose how to meet the day, starts the moment you open your eyes. Forget what happened yesterday. Really, just let it go. The argument that left you shaking, the bad habit you promised to break but didn't, the words you wish you hadn't said. It's done. Not because it didn't matter, but because you cannot change it by holding on to it. What you can do, right now, is choose something different. Choose to stop replaying the moment like a movie stuck on loop. Choose to shift from judgment to awareness. Life gives us a clean slate every morning. You don't have to repeat the same story. You can make new lines, new shapes, new colors. The Stoics called this the art of living. Marcus Aurelius, in his private journals, wrote, "Each day provides its own gifts." Not yesterday's mistakes, gifts. This means that what you do with today is entirely up to you. It's easy to forget that you're allowed to start over. We live in a culture that celebrates perfection over progress, that punishes us for being human, but rarely rewards us for learning. But if you take a real, slow breath and ask yourself, what do I want to create today? Something shifts. You stop thinking about what went wrong and start thinking about what could go right. And that small shift? It's everything. It's where the light gets in. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." And he wasn't being poetic. He was telling the truth. Who you are is not determined by yesterday's version of you. It's shaped by what you do with the space you're in right now. The mind won't always agree. It will pull you back into memories like a tide you can't stop. That's natural. The brain is wired for patterns, even painful ones. But that's where awareness comes in. When the thought returns, when regret stirs, when guilt bubbles up, you don't need to wrestle with it. You just need to notice it, observe it, like watching a storm pass by without trying to hold back the rain. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." So much of the pain we carry isn't from what happened, but from the mental movie we keep playing about it. When you realize this, you understand that you're not helpless. You have the remote. You can switch the channel. You can step outside the story you've told yourself and write a new one. Let me ask you something. If you had the chance to start fresh today, what would you do differently? Not 5 years from now, not even next week. Today. Maybe it's forgiving someone, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Maybe it's taking that first step toward a goal you've buried under fear. Maybe it's as simple as saying no to something that drains you, and yes to something that fills you up. Whatever it is, it starts with one quiet decision. I am not yesterday. I am here now, and I choose to live forward. This doesn't mean pretending the past didn't happen. It's not about toxic positivity or ignoring pain. It's about giving pain a proper place behind you, not in front of you. Because when you walk into your day staring backward, you trip over the present. You miss what's real. You miss life. Let's be honest, you've messed up. I've messed up. We all have. The goal isn't to erase our mistakes. It's to stop making them our identity. Too many people live their whole lives stuck in self-punishment, never realizing that shame doesn't make you better. It just keeps you small. You can't grow from a place of constant self-hate. You grow from self-awareness, from acceptance. From the moment you say, yeah, I did that, but I'm not that. That's the Stoic path, radical responsibility. Not blaming the world, not blaming others, and especially not blaming yourself over and over again until there's nothing left to repair. What helps is having a ritual, a moment each morning where you reset your mind before the world floods in. Before the emails, the headlines, the noise. That's where these affirmations come in, not as magic words, but as anchors, reminders. You say to yourself, today is a blank canvas. I choose not to paint it with yesterday's mess. You say, I am the artist, and my brush is intention. And then you act in alignment with that. You move like someone who knows they are not their past, but their potential. When it gets hard, because it will get hard, you return to the practice. You return to the breath. You return to the wisdom. Remember this quote by Aurelius, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. That's not meant to scare you. It's meant to clarify everything. If this were your last morning, would you spend it rehearsing a mistake? Or would you rise with courage, say, thank you, and live with heart? Some mornings, you wake up and the first thing that hits you is doubt. It's quiet, not loud or dramatic, just a subtle hum that tells you, you're not doing enough. You're not enough. Maybe it happens when you're brushing your teeth, still half asleep, staring into a mirror that reflects your messiest self, hair sticking up, eyes puffy, thoughts foggy. It's in those moments that the quiet lies sneak in. You're too late, too old, too average, that you missed your chance. But here's something most people never hear. Greatness doesn't arrive with a spotlight. It doesn't come with fanfare. It starts exactly where you are, in the quiet moments, in the messy, tired, ordinary seconds of your life. The potential is already inside you. It's been there all along. You don't need a certificate or a green light from someone else to believe in it. You just need to stop ignoring what's already true. You've overcome things that others couldn't even imagine. Maybe you don't talk about it. Maybe you downplay your strength because you've been taught that it's only real if someone else applauds it. But think about it. You've lived through heartbreak, disappointment, rejection, confusion. You've had moments where you thought you couldn't take another step, and yet here you are. That matters. That's strength, not luck. That's yours. Seneca once said, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. You didn't ask for all the struggles you've had, but you carried them. And because of them, you're stronger, wiser, and more capable than you even realize. The problem is, we've been conditioned to only see success in the loud, polished moments. The promotion, the applause, the before and after photos. But most of what makes you powerful is lived behind the scenes. It's in the way you show up for people even when you're exhausted. It's in how you keep going after hearing no 100 times. It's in the way you've rebuilt yourself after being torn down. That's greatness. It might not get you viral likes, but it builds character. Carl Jung once said, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. And when you start to look inward with honesty, you'll find there's more ability, brilliance, and strength than you've ever given yourself credit for. So let me say it clearly, don't let one failure convince you that you're not enough. I know it's tempting. You try something and it flops, and suddenly your whole mind is screaming that you're a fraud, that you should quit, that maybe you were just delusional for trying. But one loss doesn't define you. 10 losses don't define you. The only thing that defines you is what you do next. The Stoics taught that external success is out of your hands. What is within your control are your choices, your effort, and your mindset. Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. The belief comes first, not after you win. Right now, think about the way kids dream. They say, I want to be an astronaut, or I'm going to write a book, and they say it without blinking. They don't ask for permission. They don't wait until they're good enough. They just believe. Somewhere along the way, adults forget how to believe. You start measuring your potential based on your paychecks, your failures, or how many followers you have. But your worth can't be measured by what the world sees. It's measured by how much of your truth you're willing to live out loud, how much of your vision you're willing to pursue when no one's clapping. Believing you can do great things isn't arrogance. It's responsibility. The world needs what you've got, but it won't see it unless you believe it first. You have to talk to yourself differently. Most people go through their days repeating silent insults in their minds. I'm not smart enough, I'm not creative, I'm just average. You say things to yourself that you would never say to a friend. So it has to change. Look at yourself right now, today, and say it. I can do great things. Say it even if your voice shakes. Say it even if you don't fully believe it yet, because repetition matters. What you say to yourself builds your mental environment, and your environment shapes your actions. When you believe you're capable, you show up differently. You try harder. You bounce back faster. You take the shot, even when you're scared. Let's be real, you're not going to feel unstoppable every day. Some days, greatness looks like sending that scary email. Other days, it's just getting out of bed and not giving up. Both matter. Both are part of the process. That's what people miss. Greatness isn't always bold. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it looks like showing up for practice when no one's watching. The Stoics would say that consistency matters more than glory. Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, stop overthinking. Just live it. You want to be someone who creates, who leads, who heals, who inspires. Then start doing the work, even if it's small steps. Even if it's messy. Even if it's slower than you hoped. I'm not here to hype you up with empty words. I'm here to remind you of something you already know, deep down. You are not average. You are not broken. You're just a little disconnected from the fire inside you. But it's still there. It always has been. You just have to stop dimming it to fit in. You weren't meant to live on autopilot. You were meant to build, to evolve, to become. And becoming takes effort. It takes grit. It takes walking into the unknown without a map and trusting you'll figure it out on the way. Jung also said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." That's what this is about. Not becoming someone else. Not chasing status. But waking up to who you already are, under the fear, under the doubts, under the layers of hesitation. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. What are you pretending not to be good at? What dream have you been downplaying because you're scared you'll fail? What version of you is quietly waiting to be let out? The moment you decide to stop playing small, because there's more in you. More ideas. More heart. More power. But the world doesn't give you permission to unleash it. That has to come from you. From your willingness to say, I'm done shrinking. I'm done doubting. I'm ready to show up like someone who believes I can do great things. No, it won't be perfect. Yes, people will judge. Yes, you'll fail sometimes. But that's part of it. That's how you grow. You fall and you learn. You stumble and you stretch. You get rejected and then you refine. Every version of greatness you admire came through fire. They were unsure. They were scared. But they acted anyway. And so can you. So must you. Not just for success, but for your soul. Because living small hurts. It dulls your spirit. It eats away at your days. And you don't get those days back. So tomorrow morning when you're brushing your teeth, looking at yourself in that mirror, say it. Don't whisper it. Say it with conviction. I can do great things. Say it like your future depends on it. Because it does. Say it until your body starts to believe you. Say it until doubt becomes background noise. And then act like it. Not in grand gestures, but in small, powerful daily choices. You're not waiting for the perfect time. You're not waiting for more confidence. You're choosing it now because you've already proven you're capable. We've all done it, told ourselves, I'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow when you feel more ready. Tomorrow when things settle down. Tomorrow when you've had enough time to plan, prepare, figure it all out. But let's be honest, how many tomorrows have passed while you've waited for the stars to align? That's the trap, the lie perfection whispers in your ear. Not yet. Just wait a little longer. And that's how dreams rot quietly in the corners of our lives. Perfection is not a standard, it's a cage. It keeps you stuck in planning mode, thinking mode, hoping mode, anything but doing. I get it, starting is scary. The unknown is uncomfortable. You might fail. You might embarrass yourself. You might not have all the answers. But here's the truth most people don't realize. No one does. Not at the start. Everyone who's ever created something worthwhile began in the dark, unsure, unqualified, and a little terrified. That's just the nature of beginnings. But the only thing worse than failing is staying frozen. You were not built to live on pause. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." That one hits hard, doesn't it? Because you can have all the ambition in the world, but if you're not moving, you're not living. Potential without action is just regret in waiting. Think about how often we delay the things that matter most. We overthink making that call to someone we care about. We put off starting that project that's been tugging at our soul. We stall on getting healthy, writing that book, applying for that job. We convince ourselves we're being smart by waiting. But deep down, we know we're afraid, and fear loves to disguise itself as logic. But the Stoics had a different way of looking at it. They believed action was everything. Don't explain your philosophy, Marcus Aurelius wrote. Embody it. That means stop telling yourself who you want to be, and start proving it through what you do. Not next week, not after another round of mental preparation. Today. There's something powerful about taking that first step, even if it's messy, even if you don't know where it's leading. Action creates momentum. It gets you out of your head and into the world. It teaches you in real time. You don't have to know every move. You just need to know the next one. Maybe it's sending that email. Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's opening a blank page and writing one paragraph. Maybe it's having the hard conversation. It doesn't matter how small it is. What matters is that it breaks the inertia. Because once you move, you realize something important. Progress feels better than perfection. Perfection is a still frame. Progress is a living, breathing thing. And that's what we forget. Motion itself generates clarity. You don't wait for confidence before you act. You act your way into confidence. You don't wait until you feel ready. You act, and the readiness follows. That's how it works, boys. So ask yourself, what have you been putting off? What have you been telling yourself you'll start when things are right? Be honest. Because that right time you've been waiting for? It's a fantasy. It doesn't exist. There will always be something in the way. Some chaos, some self-doubt, some excuse disguised as responsibility. Life doesn't clear the path for your convenience. You clear it by walking forward. You create your own momentum. The Stoics had a deep understanding of this. They knew that life wasn't about avoiding hardship or waiting for comfort. It was about acting with intention, no matter what. Seneca once said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare, but because we do not dare that they are difficult." That hits, doesn't it? Half the mountain is built in our minds. But the second you start climbing, even if it's awkward and slow, the path begins to unfold. That's the paradox. Clarity comes through action, not before it. And you don't need to act like someone else. You don't need to move at lightning speed. You just need to begin. Do the next right thing as you are. Because waiting for perfection is really just giving fear more time to talk you out of your future. And fear, when you feed it long enough, becomes a habit. But here's the good news. Courage is also a habit, and it starts by choosing action over avoidance. Once, then again, then again. That's how change happens. Not overnight, but over time. Through repetition. Through movement. Through small acts that build something bigger than fear. So the next time your mind says, "Let's wait," I want you to respond with a quiet but firm no. Say, "Today I act," even if it's messy, even if it's scary. Let that be your mantra. Write it down. Say it in the mirror. Tattoo it on your thoughts. Because those 7 words are enough to shift your life from hesitation to momentum. You don't have to be fearless to move forward. You just have to move anyway. And look, don't get it twisted. This doesn't mean hustle nonstop. It doesn't mean burn yourself out trying to prove something. This is about intentional action, not frantic doing, but meaningful movement. It means doing what aligns with your values, even when it's hard. It means stepping into your discomfort instead of hiding from it. Carl Jung also said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." Growth hurts. But stagnation? That's worse. Because at least pain moves you. Stagnation just eats you from the inside. The beautiful part is, once you begin acting from a place of intention, you stop caring so much about being perfect. You stop waiting for the ideal setup, the green light, the guaranteed outcome. You realize that doing itself is the reward. And the truth is, every step you take, every honest attempt, adds something to your life that no amount of planning ever could. Experience, wisdom, resilience. Proof that you're not just thinking about change. You're living it. So if you're looking for a sign to begin, this is it. You don't need a grand gesture. You just need to start. The world doesn't change because you hoped it would. It changes when you step in and become part of the solution to your own problems, to your own life. You don't need to know how it all plays out. You just need to take the first step in faith and follow it with another. Trust that the path will reveal itself as you walk it. Because in the end, your life will be defined not by what you wanted to do, but by what you actually did. The conversations you had, the choices you made, the risks you took, the actions you followed through on. That's your legacy. Not the perfect plan, but the imperfect pursuit. So start today. Take action. Some days, it feels like the world wakes up before you do. Louder, faster, more demanding. The moment you open your eyes, the noise starts. Tasks to do, people to deal with, pressure to perform. And right alongside that noise, there's something even more subtle, more dangerous: doubt. That quiet voice inside your head that says, "You're not ready for this. You're going to mess it up. Who do you think you are?" We all have that voice. It doesn't shout, it whispers. And because it whispers in your own voice, you start to believe it. But here's something we rarely get taught. You don't have to listen to every thought that pops into your head. Thoughts are not facts. They're habits, echoes of old scripts. And just because a voice in your mind says you can't handle it, doesn't make it true. You've made it through things you thought would break you. Let that sink in. Seriously, pause for a second and remember just one hard thing you've already survived. Emotionally, financially, mentally. Something that, at the time, made your stomach drop, made you cry, made you question your strength. And you made it through. You're still here. And if you're still here, that means there's a part of you that can handle it. That's resilience. That's strength, not luck. The Stoics had a word for this: prohairesis, the power of inner choice. Epictetus taught that while we can't control what happens outside of us, we can always choose how we respond. And that's where your power lives, how you show up when that voice of doubt tries to take the wheel. Now, I know this isn't always easy. Doubt is persuasive. It wears 1,000 different masks: hesitation, overthinking, procrastination, self-sabotage. It doesn't always say, "You can't." Sometimes it says, "Not yet. Just wait. You're not quite ready." And it sounds so logical that you think it's protecting you. But really, it's keeping you small. Carl Jung had a powerful insight on this. He said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." What he meant is this: unless you face those hidden fears, those buried beliefs that whisper lies about your worth and capability, they'll keep running the show. You'll mistake that fear-based life for reality, but it's not reality, it's just familiar. So what do you do when doubt comes knocking? You talk back. Not with anger, but with truth. You look yourself in the mirror and say, "I've got this." Not because you're guaranteed to win. Not because it will be smooth or simple. But because you've walked through fire before and you didn't burn. You built. You adapted. You learned. You grew. Confidence isn't about having all the answers. It's not a feeling that magically shows up one day and stays forever. Confidence is a behavior. It's a decision to keep showing up even when your knees shake. It's courage in motion. And courage, as the Stoics believed, is one of the highest virtues. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his journal to himself, not to impress anyone, just to stay grounded, reminded himself, if it's endurable, then endure it. If not, stop complaining. Sounds harsh, right? But there's love in that line. There's truth. Most of what we face is endurable, but our mind convinces us it's not. It tells us the pain will last forever, that the discomfort means something is wrong. But discomfort doesn't mean failure. It often means growth. Think about it. When have you ever become stronger without a little struggle? One of the most powerful things you can do is remember that fear and confidence often walk hand in hand. They show up at the same time. Confidence doesn't erase fear. It just stops fear from making your decisions. And fear will always be part of the process. If you're doing anything that matters, starting something new, speaking your truth, stepping into unknown territory, fear will ride shotgun. But it doesn't get to drive. That's your job. That's what makes you brave. You don't wait to feel fearless. You act anyway. And that action? That's where real confidence grows. Not from thinking, not from planning, but from doing. You show up. You try. You fail. You learn. You try again. Confidence is earned, one brave attempt at a time. The psychologist Albert Bandura once studied this. He called it self-efficacy, your belief in your ability to influence outcomes. And what he found was simple. The more you act, the more capable you feel. Not because you succeed every time, but because you prove to yourself that you can survive effort, that you can face discomfort, that you can move through difficulty and come out the other side more equipped than you were before. The worst thing doubt can do is stop you before you even begin. That's where it does the most damage, not in failure, but in inaction. When it keeps you stuck. When it convinces you that playing small is safer, that hiding is smarter, that waiting is wise. But what are you really waiting for? The perfect moment? The sign? More confidence? None of that's coming. And you don't need it. You need a reason that matters enough to get you moving, even if your voice shakes, even if your palms sweat, even if your heart races. The Stoics would tell you this. The obstacle is not in the way. The obstacle is the way. What stands in front of you is your path, not your punishment, your opportunity. You don't have to do everything today. You don't have to have your whole life figured out. You just have to take the next right step, the one that's in front of you, the one that feels uncomfortable but honest, the one that aligns with who you want to be, even if you're not there yet. One action, one conversation, one truth. That's all it takes to begin rewriting the script in your head, to stop doubt from narrating your story. And please, don't mistake self-compassion for weakness. Talking to yourself kindly isn't coddling. It's courage. Most of us have spent years being our own harshest critic, beating ourselves up for every misstep, tearing ourselves down internally, and then wondering why we feel so broken. That's not humility. That's self-destruction. Real strength is being able to say, I'm struggling today, but I still believe in myself. Real strength is looking at your fear and saying, I hear you, but you don't get to run the show anymore. So here's what I want you to practice. When doubt shows up, and it will, don't panic. Don't try to shove it down. Acknowledge it. Name it. And then respond. Say, I see you, but I've got this. Say, I don't need to be perfect to move forward. Say, I've handled hard things before, and I can handle this too. Say it, even if it doesn't feel true yet. Because every time you say it, you're laying down a new track in your mind. A new habit. A new default setting. And over time, your brain catches up. Carl Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But maybe that's also the most freeing thing. To stop trying to become someone else and start trusting who you already are underneath all the fear. To see yourself, not as broken or behind, but as becoming, in progress, in motion, capable, whole. So next time you feel like you can't handle something, remember this. That voice of doubt is not your truth. It's a memory, an echo, a ghost from the past. But you are real. You are here. And you are stronger than you think. Speak that truth out loud, then take the step. Do the thing. Face the moment. Not because it's easy, but because you're ready, even if you don't feel like it yet. Confidence isn't something you wait for. It's something you build, one brave breath, one bold step, one honest moment at a time. You've got this. Truly. Most of the time, we rush through our mornings, barely awake, already thinking about work, bills, texts we forgot to reply to. We reach for our phones before we've even stretched our bodies or looked out the window. And in that rush, we miss something sacred, something powerful, the fact that we woke up, that we're here, breathing life, that our heart didn't give up in the middle of the night, that we get another shot at today, no matter how yesterday ended. We overlook this because it's so easy to take what's constant for granted. But just because something is simple doesn't mean it's small. Just because something is quiet doesn't mean it's insignificant. In fact, those quiet constants, your breath, your body, your relationships, your ability to make choices, are the very foundation of a meaningful life. Gratitude doesn't require perfection. It doesn't ask you to be happy all the time. It doesn't deny that life gets hard, messy, or downright cruel. What gratitude does is shift your perspective. It invites you to zoom out, to look at what's here instead of what's missing. It helps you see blessings not just in breakthroughs, but in breath. To understand that even when things aren't going your way, there are still reasons to say thank you. Epictetus once said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." That's not about pretending everything is okay when it's not. It's about reclaiming the power to choose your focus, especially when the world feels heavy. The truth is, our minds are wired to scan for problems. It's a survival mechanism that served our ancestors well. Stay alert, stay alive. But in modern life, that same mechanism keeps us stuck in a cycle of worry, stress, and dissatisfaction. We notice what's wrong more than what's right. We obsess over what we lack instead of appreciating what we already have. And the worst part? We normalize this. We start to believe that happiness is something we have to chase. Some future achievement or perfect moment. But that belief? It's a trap. Because if you're always waiting for more before you feel grateful, you'll never feel grateful at all. Carl Jung once wrote, "Even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness." He meant that happiness isn't the absence of struggle, it's the presence of meaning. And meaning, more often than not, comes from choosing to see what's beautiful in the middle of the chaos. So take a second, literally right now. What's one thing, just one, that you can be thankful for in this moment? It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's the warmth of your coffee, the way sunlight spills onto your floor, the sound of someone you love breathing peacefully in another room. Maybe it's the fact that your heart is still beating, your lungs are still filling, and your mind is still capable of learning, thinking, and growing. That's not nothing. That's everything. But when we forget to name it, to see it, we train our brains to filter it out. That's where gratitude becomes more than a mood. It becomes a practice. The Stoics weren't overly optimistic philosophers. They didn't ignore hardship. They embraced it. They expected pain. But they also believed that how you see the world determines how you experience it. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire while enduring grief, betrayal, and illness, wrote in his Meditations, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." That wasn't written for show. It was written as a reminder to himself. Because even emperors forget. Even the strongest minds need to be reminded to look for the light. Gratitude is a lens, a way of seeing. When you choose it, you train your brain to find what's good. And here's the kicker, your brain responds. Science backs this up. Neuroscience shows that regular gratitude practices, like writing down 3 things you're grateful for each morning, literally change the structure of your brain. You become more optimistic, more resilient, less anxious, and less likely to spiral. Gratitude strengthens your mental immune system. You don't need a perfect life to benefit from gratitude. You just need to start looking for the things that are already working. Now, this doesn't mean you ignore pain. It doesn't mean you fake smiles or pretend things are fine when they're not. That's not gratitude. That's denial. Real gratitude says, yes, I'm hurting. Yes, this is hard. But even here, there's something worth noticing, something worth holding on to. It's about making space for both joy and sorrow, for grief and grace, for everything that makes life real. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Gratitude is part of that change. It doesn't alter your circumstances. It alters your relationship to them. Think about this. How often do we say, I have to? I have to go to work. I have to pick up the kids. I have to clean the house. But what if we flipped that? What if we said, I get to go to work. I get to pick up the kids. I get to clean a home I live in. That shift? It's not just semantics. It's transformation. It's the kind of mindset that builds peace from the inside out. Because gratitude turns obligations into privileges. It turns burdens into blessings. And that's not just feel-good talk. It's practical stoicism in action. When things go wrong, and they will, your instinct might be to complain, to ruminate, to focus on everything that's unfair or frustrating or painful. And while those feelings are valid, staying stuck in them is a choice. Complaining is a reaction. Gratitude is a response, a conscious, grounded response that says, I'm still here. I still have something. And I won't let this moment steal the entire day. That's real strength. That's what it means to live intentionally. You don't need a list of 100 blessings to start. Just one will do. Say it out loud. I'm grateful for this breath. I'm grateful I woke up. I'm grateful someone out there loves me. Let it be simple. Let it be small. Because the more you name it, the more you see it. And the more you see it, the more it grows. Over time, that quiet practice will shape your life in ways you can't imagine. You'll handle stress better. You'll connect more deeply with others. You'll complain less. And when hard times come, and they always do, you'll have an anchor, a place inside yourself that knows how to find light in the dark. So tomorrow morning, before the world gets loud, before the notifications start rolling in, take 1 minute for yourself. 1 quiet minute to look around and notice what's good. Then say it out loud or in your mind, I'm grateful for the little things and the big ones. Make that your morning ritual, not just a habit, but a value, a belief that no matter what's missing, there's still something to hold on to. Something worth living for. And on the days when that feels impossible, when life knocks the wind out of you and you can't find anything to be grateful for, start with this, I'm still here. That's your foundation. That's your proof. And from that one truth, everything else can be rebuilt. Gratitude doesn't fix everything, but it helps you face everything. And that, sometimes, is more than enough. Let's be honest, no one wakes up hoping to fail. No one starts their day thinking, I hope I completely embarrass myself today. But deep down, what scares people isn't just the act of failing. It's what failure seems to say about us. That we're not good enough. That we don't belong. That we were foolish for even trying. That fear is what holds so many people back from taking that first step, whether it's writing that first page, applying for that dream job, starting that conversation, or launching that idea. People stay frozen, not because they lack ability, but because they fear what failure might look like. They're terrified of the judgment, the potential embarrassment, the idea that maybe they'll get it wrong. But here's the truth most people miss. Failure isn't the end of the road. It's the beginning of the real journey. It's not a wall. It's a doorway. A comma, not a period. When something doesn't go the way you hoped, it doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've learned. And that learning is worth far more than any easy win. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Think about any success story you admire. Anyone who's made a dent in the world or created something meaningful. Every single one of them has a first chapter that's messy. Some had doors slammed in their faces. Others were laughed out of rooms. Many had their work dismissed or ignored. And yet they kept going. Not because they were fearless, but because they stopped treating failure as a sign to quit. They saw it as part of the process. Carl Jung once said, "A man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them." It's the same with failure. You can't conquer what you're unwilling to face. You have to walk through the fire to come out forged. We're so conditioned to view failure as proof of inadequacy that we forget what failure actually is. Feedback. That's all it is. Not a moral judgment. Not a death sentence. Just information. It's life's way of saying, okay, not that way. Try again. Imagine if a toddler gave up after falling the first few times they tried to walk. We'd never get anywhere. But as adults, we internalize those stumbles. We make them personal. I failed becomes, I am a failure. But those two things aren't the same. You are not your results. Your effort, your integrity, your willingness to keep showing up, that's what defines you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. That sounds intense, but it's freeing. It means life's too short to waste worrying about what might go wrong, especially when what might go right is still on the table. It's okay to be awkward. It's okay to try something and not get it right the first time, or the second, or the 10th. The people who win aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who keep getting up. They fall forward. They adapt. They grow. It's not glamorous. It's not Instagram worthy. But it's real. And it's the only way anything meaningful ever gets built. Perfection is a myth. Nobody nails it on the first try. And if they did, they probably weren't aiming high enough. The deeper truth is this: failure is not your enemy. Fear of failure is. Because fear of failure will convince you to play small, to shrink your dreams, to match your comfort zone. It'll tell you that it's safer not to care too much, not to try too hard. That way, if you mess up, it won't hurt as much. But that's not protection. That's surrender. And it costs you something real. Carl Jung also wrote, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. That idea hits hard, doesn't it? But it doesn't just apply to parenthood. It applies to all of us. Every time we choose fear over effort, silence over truth, avoidance over action, we pass that habit down. Whether to our kids, our friends, or even our future selves. You want to live a bold life? Then stop worshiping safety. Stop waiting for the perfect conditions. Stop needing permission. And start showing up. Start taking chances. Start failing forward. Because that's how you'll build the kind of strength that actually lasts. The Stoics believed in what they called premeditatio malorum, a practice of imagining the worst that could happen. Not to become negative, but to prepare. To remind yourself that even if things fall apart, you will not. You can endure. You can rebuild. This isn't blind optimism. It's grounded resilience. It's the belief that you can face what comes and still find your footing. So what if it's awkward? So what if it doesn't go according to plan? So what if people judge you, laugh, criticize, or misunderstand? That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to try, to act, to do what your heart keeps nudging you to do, and to trust that even when it goes sideways, you're still moving forward, still growing, still becoming. The Stoics welcomed hardship as a tool, a forge, a mirror. They believed that a meaningful life wasn't about avoiding difficulty, but about responding to it with clarity, strength, and purpose. Here's the line I want you to remember: I'm not afraid to fail because failure is how I grow. Let that line echo in your mind whenever you hesitate. Let it be your armor against judgment, your reminder when you feel small. It's not about pretending to be fearless. It's about honoring the deeper truth. You are more than any mistake you'll ever make. There's a story you get to write with your life. And yes, you'll mess up some of the chapters. You'll get the grammar wrong. The pacing will be off. Some scenes will end too early. But if you keep the pen in your hand, if you keep showing up, learning, refining, your story will be yours. And that's what matters. Not how polished it looks, but how true it feels. You won't get it right every time. But you don't have to. You just have to be brave enough to begin. And to begin again. That's where the power is. That's where you are. It's funny how quickly a day can go sideways. You wake up with the best intentions. Maybe you even hit snooze one less time than usual, but then, out of nowhere, it begins. A message that throws you off, traffic that tests your patience, someone says the wrong thing at the wrong time, and plans fall apart. Just like that, you're frustrated, tense, mentally checked out before noon. We've all been there. The mind wants to go into reaction mode, to spiral into frustration, to replay that one moment over and over again like a bad song stuck in your head. And honestly, that's the easy path. The default. Anyone can complain. Anyone can find something to be bitter about. Anyone can point at what's wrong and stay there. But here's the thing, you're not just anyone. If you're here reading this, I'm going to assume something. You're someone who's actively trying to live better, to think better, to be better. You're not looking for a shortcut. You're looking for real change. And real change doesn't come from blaming the world every time things get tough. It comes from taking responsibility, not for what happens, but for how you respond. That's what Stoicism is all about. Marcus Aurelius, writing in the quiet moments between wars and political chaos, once reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He didn't say life would be easy. He didn't say people would always be kind. He simply said, you get to decide how you show up, no matter what the day throws at you. That's what separates people who grow from people who stay stuck. Not talent, not luck, but mindset. The ability to look at a challenge and say, this might be hard, but it's not going to ruin me. The choice to lean into calm when your emotions want to explode. The decision to rise above negativity, not because you're naive, but because you're intentional. It takes effort. It takes self-awareness. And most of all, it takes practice. Because no one wakes up automatically choosing positivity. Our brains are wired to scan for threats, to notice problems, to anticipate what could go wrong. That was helpful back when we were running from predators. But now, in the modern world, that wiring keeps us stuck in a loop of worry, judgment, and frustration unless we interrupt it. And how do we interrupt it? With perspective, with self-talk, with deliberate choices. That's where the real work happens, in the small, invisible moments. When someone cuts you off in traffic and you want to yell, but instead, you take a deep breath and let it go. When your plans fall through and instead of sulking, you use the time for something else. When someone's negativity tries to infect your peace, and you simply don't engage. Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. So, when something pushes your buttons, it's not just an annoyance, it's an invitation. An opportunity to learn what you value, what triggers you, where you still need to grow. And that kind of awareness? That's a superpower. Choosing positivity doesn't mean pretending everything's fine. It doesn't mean ignoring real problems or bottling up your emotions. That's not healthy, and it's not Stoic. The Stoics didn't teach suppression. They taught strength through clarity. They believed in feeling everything, but not being controlled by anything. But you can choose differently. You can decide to step out of that loop, not because you're denying what's difficult, but because you're taking control of what's still in your hands. Your attitude, your presence, your energy. When the world gives you chaos, you can choose calm. When people are rude, you can choose grace. When plans break, you can choose adaptability. These choices add up. They form the lens through which you see your life. And when you consistently choose a mindset of calm and possibility, you're not just having a better day, you're becoming a better person. Positivity isn't about being the loudest, happiest person in the room. It's about being grounded. It's about having peace inside you that the outside world can't easily shake. That's what Stoicism trains you for, not to escape life, but to meet it head-on with a steady heart and a clear mind. Aurelius also wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." So, the question becomes, are your thoughts helping you move forward? Or are they keeping you stuck? Let me be clear, some days will still be heavy. Some moments will test you more than others. That's part of being human. You'll feel overwhelmed. You'll get irritated. You'll have doubts. But the difference is that now you have tools. You have awareness. And most importantly, you have choice. That's the real freedom. Not waiting for life to be perfect, but deciding how you'll show up regardless. You can be the calm in the storm, the steady voice in the noise, the one who chooses to see possibility when others only see problems. And when people ask, how do you stay so positive? You won't have to fake a smile or pretend you've got it all figured out. You'll be able to say, because I practice, because I train my mind, because I remind myself every day that life isn't about avoiding pain, it's about rising through it with grace. That's what makes you different. That's what gives your energy weight, depth, and substance. Anyone can react. You respond. Anyone can complain. You create. Anyone can point out what's broken. You build something better, even if it's just in your own mind. So tomorrow morning, when you wake up, don't just roll into the day by accident. Start with intention. Say it out loud. I choose positivity. Not because life's perfect, but because I get to decide how I show up. Say it until it becomes second nature. Say it until your energy starts shifting rooms. Because that one choice, repeated daily, becomes a habit. And that habit becomes your baseline. And from that baseline, you build a life that feels not just lighter, but stronger. That's the thing about positivity. It's not a mood. It's not a trend. It's a practice of the mind. A discipline. And just like any discipline, it gets easier with repetition. You're not doing it to impress anyone. You're doing it because you understand something most people don't. How you feel is connected to how you think. And how you think, that's in your hands. Always has been. Always will be. Have you ever really listened to the way you speak to yourself? I mean, really paid attention to the things you say inside your own head? Because if you did, there's a good chance you'd be shocked. We all have that inner voice, the one that pipes up when we make a mistake, when we fall short, when we feel like we're not measuring up. And that voice? It can be brutal, cold, ruthless. It says things you would never dream of saying to someone you care about. You wouldn't call your best friend a failure for missing a workout. You wouldn't tell someone you love that they're worthless because they forgot something important. But for some reason, we let ourselves get away with saying those things to ourselves, quietly and repeatedly, until we start to believe them. And here's the dangerous part. It becomes normal. The self-criticism, the blame, the mental beatdown. It becomes the soundtrack of your inner world. And over time, it chips away at you. Not all at once, but slowly. It makes you doubt your own goodness. It drains your energy. It clouds your ability to see your own progress. And worst of all, it convinces you that being hard on yourself is the same thing as being responsible, disciplined, or humble. But that's not discipline, that's damage. The Stoics were clear about this. Self-awareness was at the heart of their philosophy, but not self-hatred. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." That's not just poetic, it's a warning. The way you think, especially about yourself, creates the emotional atmosphere you live in. If all you ever do is scold yourself, question yourself, punish yourself, then you're living in a storm of your own making. And no one can thrive in a storm that never ends. So maybe it's time to challenge the idea that self-kindness is weakness, because it's not. Being kind to yourself isn't letting yourself off the hook. It's not making excuses. It's not lowering your standards. It's choosing a better path to growth. A more sustainable one. Think about it. When you were a kid learning to walk, did you get yelled at every time you fell down? You were encouraged, cheered on, picked up, supported. And guess what? You still learned to walk. You still figured it out. Why do we think we need to be harsh on ourselves to learn as adults? Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." And you know what? He was right. It is terrifying to stop hiding behind perfectionism, to stop performing, to look in the mirror and say, "This is me. Flaws, failures, fears, and I'm still worthy of compassion." But that's also where real transformation begins. Because when you stop fighting yourself, you free up all that energy for something much more powerful: growth. Let's be clear, self-kindness doesn't mean you never hold yourself accountable. It means you separate your mistakes from your identity. You don't say, "I'm a terrible person." You say, "I messed up and I can learn from it." That shift in language? It's everything. Because it gives you space to evolve. It gives you permission to change without having to hate yourself first. Seneca once said, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." I think the same applies internally. If your attention is constantly scattered, focused on your flaws, your regrets, your perceived inadequacies, you're not grounded. You're not present. And when you're not present, you miss the progress that's already happening. You miss the small wins. You miss the strength it takes just to keep showing up on hard days. That's why kindness is a form of focus, a form of mindfulness. It brings you back to the moment. It reminds you, "I'm not perfect, but I'm trying." And that counts. Think of it like this. You can't build anything on a foundation of shame. Not a healthy body. Not a peaceful mind. Not a meaningful life. If your motivation comes from self-loathing, it will eventually run out or destroy you in the process. But if your motivation comes from self-respect, from a genuine belief that you're worth taking care of, then you become unstoppable. You stop trying to prove yourself, and you start trying to understand yourself. And that understanding? That's what creates lasting change. Let me give you something simple to try tomorrow morning. When you're brushing your teeth or standing in front of the mirror, take a moment. Look at yourself, not with criticism, not with a list of things to fix, but with softness, with honesty. Say something kind out loud, if you can. Something like, "I'm doing the best I can," or "I'm proud of how far I've come," or even just, "I'm still here." That means something. It might feel awkward at first. It might feel fake. But that's only because you're not used to it. Practice it enough, and it becomes a habit. A healthy one. A life-saving one. And when that inner critic shows up, and it will, you don't have to argue with it. You don't have to spiral. Just notice it. Thank it for trying to protect you, and then choose a different voice. One that sounds more like a mentor and less like a bully. The Stoics taught that we should be strict with ourselves but patient in our correction. That's the key. Firm standards. Gentle words. You can hold yourself accountable without holding yourself hostage. Remember, healing doesn't happen in an environment of punishment. It happens in an environment of safety, of care, of self-respect. Healing isn't something you earn. It's something you allow. You allow yourself to be human, to not have it all figured out, to need rest, to need grace. So the next time you catch yourself spiraling, beating yourself up for a small mistake, replaying an awkward moment, blaming yourself for something you couldn't control, pause. Take a breath. And choose differently. Choose to speak to yourself the way you would speak to a friend you deeply care about. Someone you believe in. Because whether you realize it or not, you are that friend. You've been carrying yourself through every hard day, every lonely night, every unexpected setback. And you deserve credit for that. Being kind to yourself isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's maturity. It's growth. The kind that sticks. The kind that builds character, not just performance. So today, tomorrow, and every day after, let that be your new baseline. Not perfection. Not punishment. But presence. Compassion. And a quiet reminder, I'll be kind to myself because I'm doing the best I can. And that, my friend, is enough. We all have this picture in our heads, don't we? A mental image of what happiness should look like. It's always tied to something outside of us. The perfect relationship, the dream job, the ideal body, the next big achievement. We convince ourselves that once we have that thing, then we'll finally be happy. Then we'll feel settled, fulfilled, complete. But let's be honest, how many times have you reached a goal only to find that the joy you expected was either short-lived or never quite arrived at all? That's the trap. We chase happiness like it's hiding somewhere just beyond the next milestone, and the longer we chase it, the further it seems to drift. But maybe it's not out there. Maybe it never was. Maybe it's been in our hands the entire time, just buried under layers of distraction, expectation, and noise. Happiness isn't something you stumble across. It's not a prize you earn after doing life the right way. It's not even something that happens to you. It's something you create every single day, in the small choices, in the way you speak to yourself, in how you respond when things go sideways. It's in the habits you build, the thoughts you nurture, the boundaries you set. It's not about waiting for the perfect circumstances. It's about deciding that your peace matters enough to protect, regardless of what the world throws at you. The Stoics understood this on a level most of us are still trying to grasp. Epictetus once said, "There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond the power of our will." That's a hard pill to swallow, especially when we've been taught to control everything, to plan our futures, manage our image, fix every problem. But the Stoics remind us that peace doesn't come from having everything under control. It comes from letting go of what we can't control and taking ownership of what we can, our attitude, our actions, our values. When you make the shift from seeking happiness to choosing it, everything changes. You stop blaming the world for how you feel. You stop waiting for someone to show up and make you feel loved, seen, appreciated. You stop outsourcing your joy to people who may never be able to give it to you. And instead, you turn inward. You start asking real questions. What lights me up? What drains me? What kind of life am I actually living, and is it aligned with what I say I value? That level of honesty isn't easy. It's necessary, because it's the only way to take your power back. Most people spend their whole lives looking outward, scrolling, comparing, chasing. But when you begin to look inward, you start to understand something deeper. Happiness isn't this loud, euphoric, Instagrammable thing. Often it's quiet. It's subtle. It's the moment you realize you're at peace with who you are. It's waking up and not feeling dread. It's laughing with someone you trust. It's sitting with your own thoughts and not wanting to escape them. But choosing happiness isn't just about feeling good. It's about building a mindset that can weather the storm. Because life will throw you curveballs. You'll face grief, disappointment, betrayal, uncertainty. No one escapes that. But if you've built your happiness on internal strength rather than external conditions, those storms won't destroy you. You might bend, but you won't break. You'll find your center again because you know where it is. Marcus Aurelius, another Stoic giant, wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." It's not the stuff. It's not the status. It's your perspective. Your ability to pause when things get overwhelming and ask yourself, what part of this is mine to carry? Most of us carry too much. We take responsibility for everyone else's moods, opinions, expectations. And in doing so, we slowly disconnect from ourselves. But happiness doesn't come from pleasing everyone. It comes from knowing who you are and honoring that, even when it's inconvenient. It also means learning to protect your peace, because let's be real, the world is loud. People will project their fears onto you. They'll tell you what you should want, who you should be, how you should act. And if you're not careful, you'll start living someone else's version of happiness. That's why setting boundaries isn't just a wellness trend. It's a survival tool. When you say no to things that drain you, you're actually saying yes to your mental health, to your time, to your sanity. That's not selfish. That's wisdom. Another powerful idea from the Stoics: don't get caught up in the highs and lows. Don't let praise inflate your ego. Don't let criticism crush your spirit. Stay steady, grounded, consistent. That's where real happiness lives. Not in the temporary spike of attention or approval, but in the quiet rhythm of self-trust. You wake up. You live your values. You treat people with kindness. You show up for yourself. And you do it again tomorrow. And look, it's okay if happiness feels hard some days. That doesn't mean you're doing life wrong. It means you're human. Some mornings, the clouds feel heavy. Some seasons, everything feels like a struggle. But even in those moments, you still have choices. You can choose to rest instead of quitting. You can choose to speak gently to yourself instead of tearing yourself apart. You can choose to believe that just because it's hard today doesn't mean it'll be hard forever. When you stop trying to fix everything about yourself, you free up energy to actually enjoy your life, to be present, to feel grateful, to notice the good. Not because your life is perfect, but because you've decided to stop waiting for perfect to be happy. So say it with me now, out loud or silently: I own my happiness and I choose to protect it. Let that be your mantra. Let that be the mindset you carry into every conversation, every setback, every moment of stillness. Own it because no one else can do it for you. Not your partner, not your friends, not your career. You are the one who wakes up with yourself every day, so make that relationship a good one. At the end of the day, happiness isn't a destination. It's a direction, a set of daily decisions, a practice. And like any practice, some days will feel easier than others. But if you stick with it, if you keep showing up for yourself, keep choosing joy over judgment, peace over pressure, you'll start to feel a shift. You'll realize you don't have to chase happiness anymore. You are it. It's who you become when you decide that you're already enough, already worthy, already whole. And that's the kind of happiness no one can take away. Some mornings, it feels like the world is already spinning too fast. The moment you open your eyes, there's a message that irritates you. The sink is full, you're running behind, and just as you're trying to gather yourself, something or someone pushes that invisible button. Suddenly, your whole day feels hijacked. We've all been there. The tension rises in your shoulders, your jaw clenches, your thoughts race. It's in that moment, the tiny gap between what happens and how you respond, where your true strength lives. But most people never see it. They're too deep in reaction mode, too wired to snap back, defend, explain, or explode. But you don't have to live like that. That's not strength. That's survival mode. And you deserve more than just surviving. You deserve peace. Peace isn't passive. It's not what happens when life finally calms down. It's a deliberate decision, a discipline, a daily practice. It's choosing, moment by moment, not to let the chaos of the outside world decide the temperature of your inner world. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Think about that. He didn't say bad things wouldn't happen. He didn't promise a smooth ride. What he offered was a reminder that your response is where your freedom begins. The external world is full of unpredictability, but your mind, that's where your power lives. And you don't need anyone's permission to protect it. Let's be real. It's easy to say, stay calm. It's much harder when you're sitting in traffic and someone cuts you off, or when your boss talks down to you, or when your partner says something that cuts too deep. That's when the real test begins. That's when you have a choice. You can react automatically, lash out, shut down, spiral, or you can pause, breathe, and let that first wave of emotion roll in and roll out without letting it dictate what you do next. That pause? That's the pause the Stoics trained for. Carl Jung had a powerful insight into this as well. He said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." That space is everything. It's where you stop being a prisoner of impulse and become a person of intention. And that space doesn't grow by accident. It grows through practice. Through small daily moments where you choose to hold your tongue, take a breath, soften your posture. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. It's control without suppression. Power without destruction. See, most people think power is about force, about dominance, about making things go your way. But real power is calm in the middle of the storm. It's emotional maturity. It's the ability to be hurt and still choose healing over harm. To be disrespected and still choose dignity. To be stressed and still choose grace. That's the kind of power the Stoics were talking about. Not the loud kind, but the steady kind. The kind that doesn't flinch when tested. The kind that stands its ground without shouting. Let me ask you something. How many times have you looked back on a moment and thought, "I wish I had just paused"? Maybe you said something you didn't mean. Maybe you let one bad mood ruin an entire day. Maybe you let someone else's bad energy become your own. And afterward, you felt it, that subtle regret. Not because the feeling wasn't valid, but because the reaction didn't align with who you want to be. That's the cost of living on autopilot. But every day gives you a chance to choose differently, to rewrite the pattern, to protect your peace like it matters. Because it does. And this isn't about being numb or emotionless. It's about not being a slave to your emotions. Emotions are natural, beautiful, even useful. But they're signals, not instructions. You can feel anger without being ruled by it. You can feel fear and still walk forward. You can feel sadness and still treat yourself with compassion. Seneca once said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." And in the same way, no moment proves your growth like the ones that challenge your peace. So the next time you feel yourself tightening up, emotionally, physically, mentally, remember this. You can pause. You can breathe. You can control how you respond. That's not just some motivational quote. That's a skill, a muscle. And every time you use it, you strengthen it. Think of your peace like a home. Would you leave the front door wide open for anyone to walk by and bring dirt and chaos inside? You'd protect it. You'd be selective. You'd maintain it. That's what you need to do with your inner world. Not build walls, but create boundaries. Not isolate yourself, but insulate your spirit. This is why practices like journaling, mindfulness, and even a few minutes of silence in the morning are so powerful. They remind you of your anchor before the waves hit. They create space between you and the noise. They help you get familiar with your own thoughts so that when life throws you off, you can come back to yourself quickly. Because you're not trying to become someone else. You're not aiming for perfection. You're simply choosing to respond to life in a way that reflects your values, not your triggers. And let's talk about triggers for a second. They're not enemies. They're invitations. Every time something sets you off, it's pointing to a wound that wants your attention, not your judgment. Your awareness. That doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. It means there's more healing to do, more understanding to uncover. And you get to do that work gently, without shame, without punishment, just with presence. So start saying it to yourself every morning, if you have to. When the tension builds, when the day feels heavier than usual, say, I can pause. I can breathe. I control how I respond. Say it until it becomes a rhythm in your body. Say it until your nervous system begins to trust that it doesn't have to go to war every time something goes wrong. Say it until you believe it, even on the hard days. That's the practice. That's the power. Not changing everything around you, but changing how you move within it. Life will test you. People will trigger you. Traffic will be a nightmare. But your peace? That's yours to protect. And no one, no stranger, no boss, not even your own anxiety, can take it from you unless you hand it over. Don't hand it over. Choose instead to stand inside your own calm. To lead with clarity. To speak with intention. To act from love, not fear. That's not softness. It's strength. That's not avoidance. It's maturity. That's not weakness. It's wisdom. And the more you live like that, the more you become someone who doesn't just talk about peace, but embodies it. Someone who changes the room just by walking into it, not by force, but by presence. And that presence? That's the legacy of every Stoic who ever sat in stillness and said, "The world can be loud, but I will not be moved." Now it's your turn.